Awava, the Australian Women Against Violence Alliance, is one of the 5 Commonwealth-funded national women's alliances, and we focus on all forms of violence against women. And this is the 3rd time we've taken a delegation to CSW, and we took 4 this year. Violence against women was a review theme this year, and it's always important. It's always through all of the other themes anyway. And gender inequality is key for us because it's a cause of this male gender-based violence against women, as well as it causes more gender inequality. So I just want to acknowledge that Margaret Auberinas is on the delegation. She's here today, and our program manager Marindal Andrews here, and we've got Liz Snell from the advisory group. We've got a very strong advisory group from all around Australia, comprising a lot of the national and statewide peak bodies around domestic violence and sexual assault, but also other peak bodies and networks which have a core interest in violence against women and children. One of the things I suppose that we sort of, well, first of all, I wanted to say that other times we put in abstracts to present parallel sessions at CSW, and we've been highly successful, probably too successful. So the last couple of years we've been presenting up to 7 parallel events, which has kept us pretty busy. And so this year we only put in 4 abstracts, and we thought we could manage those, but they had a different system this year, which was a bit unfortunate, and they didn't tell us before we put them in, but then they decided that only 1 abstract per organisation could be successful, and yet we're an umbrella alliance and made up of many organisations, so it actually shut out some of our parallel events, which was very unfortunate. But we ended up combining one, which was very good. It was called Women's Led Spaces, and it was 3 of our delegates presented that around women-led spaces in working with perpetrators who use violence, women-led spaces in the educational sector with feminist pedagogy, and women-led spaces in community-based services working with women and children, and that was very well received. I was also involved in another parallel event hosted by the Global Network of Women's Shelters, and we talked a lot there about what Australia was doing. Australia is leading the way in many ways around violence against women, and I was also fortunate to be involved in 2 side events which were hosted by the Australian Government, and one was on a key issue for WESNet, which is the Women's Services Network, around technology facilitated abuse and how that is now impacting so many women across the country. And it's a new tool, same behaviours, but a new tool, and it's 24 hours a day, and it's pervasive in all parts of women's lives, and it's quite high risk around stalking and geo-tracking and harming reputations and impersonating and threatening and so forth. So it's something that's very passionate to us, but we're also extremely keen to make sure that women and girls don't move away from technology. If women are to ever achieve gender equality, they need to embrace technology as much as men do. So we teach women how to use technology safely, how to look after their privacy settings, how to use it to collect evidence against the perpetrator. So it's a really important issue for us, and we had a very successful side event, which was full house, very well received. And I think the side events might have been recorded and podcast, so we might be able to get some links to those down the track as well. The other side event which I was involved with was with Our Watch and UN Women Australia around national plans and national roadmaps. And like I said, Australia really is at the forefront of working at a national level around domestic and family violence in particular. And I was able to talk about the national plan, but also some of the very important things that Australia's got going, like Our Watch and like Anne Rose, and like the Australian Bureau of Statistics Personal Safety Survey. And I was fortunate to be on the COAG advisory panel with Rosie, and we were party to sort of helping translate the new research around attitudes of young people into the new national campaign, which has started on TV last week. And that's a very important campaign. The research which has gone into that shows shocking attitudes in children as young as 10 around girls and women. And what it shows is that the general community, when they see violence against women, they do three things. They blame the victim, they minimise or justify the violence and abuse in some way, and they excuse the perpetrator in some way. So the ads might look fairly simple because they only go for 1 minute, but they are trying to reflect the messages in the research. And the important thing is that it's targeting influences of young people 10 to 19. And when they were extensively tested on focus groups, this is a big learning curve for me, they don't work for everybody. And they're being broadcast in the lounge room where there's a lot of different people, but they don't work for everybody. But they did work for the focus group of young males who had younger brothers who were aged between 10 and 19. So those younger males around about 18 to 35 did work for them, so that's good. And that's a world first. And what we're pushing for is that we don't have to stop at that ad, but Australia really needs to enter into a cultural change campaign over the next 2 decades to stop this gender-based violence against women, because nothing else has worked. So we're encouraging the government to not just stop at the ads, but to entrench it through, like what Kate Jenkins was talking about this morning, about through the media, through the sporting clubs, through community groups, through the workplaces and so forth, and consistent embedded messaging. So we were able to talk about that at the side event. It is a world first. I think Australia really is up there. It's good. We need to keep them honest and sustain it, and there's a few things missing around very structural integration and coordination, very strong leadership, and independent monitoring and evaluation, which we're encouraging them to focus on. I think what McHannah said, it's important to be, you learn so much at CSW, but bringing it home here is where you can be really influential. So for example, I attended a national plan, third action plan consultation last week, and was able to bring in some of the agreements around their obligations in that consultation feedback, and Rosie and I on the COAG advisory panel were able to get some things in the COAG advisory panel recommendations to COAG as well around the CSW agreements, so just to keep them honest about their obligations under human rights. So that's really important. I think for us, another reflection, I don't want to repeat everything that everyone else is saying, but particularly around violence against women, it does get subsumed under discrimination, and there's still a mixed position, I suppose, about whether CDOR is sufficient. And we know it's necessary, but is it sufficient? And so there's a lot of talk about, do we need a new international standalone instrument, particularly focusing on violence against women? So there's a lot of discussion happening there, and some of the younger women are starting to talk about that each year, and I think that's great for the younger generations, younger women to have those discussions. And there is resistance against it because people don't want to go backwards, and so that's I understand that too. But we also can't stop young women's discussion, and I think that's really important. I do want to point you to our website's blog on www.awava.org.au. If you go find blog and you'll find Women Who Inspire, we've got a blog there around CSW from one of the women that went this year. How long have I got? 1 minute. Another thing we learned, I think a lesson for us, was that next year I think it would be really good to prepare some templates around language and influences so that we could actually just start lobbying and handing things out for people to take away. Because we were often doing things on the spot and doing things a lot very verbally. So I think preparing those during the year would be really good. We found like the first week is very much like a conference, and the second week is very much around language, argy-bargy, but the first week's really important about influencing different groups as well. So helping other delegations influence their own government delegations. The other thing, I suppose, is that we've also been emphasising to strengthen our offices for women and not erode them, so that we can actually get some monitoring across portfolios like we used to have. And also, I think the other thing is that it helps us protect women's services. We saw an uninformed consequence of New South Wales reforms where we lost a lot of standalone women's services. And we need to strengthen the perception of the importance of women's services. They are in the agreement around maintaining and protecting women's services because they're seen as valuable and necessary. And Awava's also just done a position paper on the importance of women's services, which we'll make available later as well. The other thing, I just very briefly, gender equality is critical and it's again necessary, but it's not sufficient to get rid of gender-based violence against women. We still have to deal with all of those attitudes, the sexism, the misogyny, the male privilege, the stereotypes. We can't just achieve gender equality, because this is we're seeing this in Scandinavian countries. It's there, but it doesn't get rid of violence against women. And it's the same, you can legislate against racism, you can have a black president in America, but it doesn't get rid of racist attitudes. And gender equality, formal gender equality, doesn't get rid of violence against women, because you need transformative change, not just formal change.
Thank you.